Eek, you frightened me. Welcome. This is Nate, joined with Beth. Hello, Beth.
Hello, Nate.
Coming at you to review. What the hell are we coming at them to review?
The Frighteners?
I think so. I remember when it first came out, I thought it was the Frighteners. I didn't know how to pronounce it. But I mean, that one guy says the actual word in the movie.
Frighteners?
Yeah. Trying to put the Frighteners in people. But anyway, it's Frighteners, Peter Jackson, I think 1995. Now, if you can just bear with me, Beth, and let me geek out a bit.
When haven't I let you geek out?
That's true. We'll find out your history with the movie after I not so briefly tell mine. So basically, I was a fan of Peter Jackson before the mainstream in America knew anything about Peter Jackson, mostly from Dead Alive, his movie that he did. Then we found out about Bad Taste or whatever it was. He did these in his early career, he did gory movies. He was based out of New Zealand. Frighteners was shot in New Zealand, by the way. That's why.
He's giving me eerie eye contact as he's giving me this commentary.
Long story not so long, I was a fan of Peter Jackson when this movie came out, and actually me and an acquaintance, Jess, the same guy who was in the star of Chainsaw Kitty Massacre, we went to see it together because we were both big Peter Jackson fans. This was after, Bad Taste, Dead Alive, and then he'd done Heavenly Creatures, which I was a fan of at the time, and that one chick from Heavenly Creatures does a brief cameo as a police woman. She just turns around and there she is. But so we were like big Peter Jackson fans when most North Americans, that were going to see this probably didn't know who the hell Peter Jackson is. It's probably just another Michael J. Fox movie. But that's my brief history, or not so brief, depending on if you're Beth or myself. Brief history with, the movie. So me and Jess actually saw this in the theater. I can't remember. I know there were some people there because I remember some people's reactions to things, but it was basically Peter Jackson's first Hollywood movie, I think. Peter Jackson, if you don't know, Beth, would go on to make the Lord of the Rings trilogy in 2001 and movies that I can't stand whatsoever, but a lot of people like them and stuff. So Peter Jackson became a big name in the early 2000s in America and the world. But I think this is his first Hollywood movie, and it's produced by Robert Zemeckis, the guy who directed the three Back to the Futures, which also starred Michael J. Fox. Beth's just got this bewildered, how am I dating such a genius look on her face? So I'm not the biggest Michael J. Fox fan, but I want to say that this is probably, I don't think he really necessarily had a hit since Back to the Future 3 in would have been 1990. So Michael J. Fox
brought him back in.
I think it was the attempt to. Michael J. Fox was doing a lot of rom-coms and stuff in the early to mid 90s and a lot of Universal movies, and this might have been maybe the last attempt to put him back up there. Let's make him a star. And honestly, the character, and maybe you can attest to this, the character he plays isn't really a vehicle to really put him back on the star map, because it's kind of a depressed, and almost anti-hero kind of a character. So it's really not a good vehicle. But anyway, Robert Zemeckis produced Peter Jackson's first Hollywood movie, which leads us to The Frighteners. So I blabbed for about close to 4 minutes. So what's your history? I don't think your history will be 4 minutes long with the movie.
I liked the picture, and I said, "What is this?" And we watched it.
I found the Blu-ray for under $10 at Half Price Books, plus 20% off. So I never owned this on Blu-ray. I just had the DVD, and I've actually never seen the director's cut, which is the version we watched on the Blu-ray. So I thought, well, it's a decent price. I don't have it on Blu-ray. It'll be fun to rewatch it. Beth's got great, Nate's talking face again.
Good thing I didn't have a very brief history.
A good thing you had a brief history.
A very long history.
Anyway, Frighteners, I will say that the director's cut...
I am here, by the way, if people are wondering.
I will say the director's cut, I'd say that the extra footage is, which of course Beth, every scene is new to her, so nothing new was...
I had never seen it until a couple nights ago.
So everything was new to her, but I will say the extra bits I mean, take them or leave them. I mean, the movie I think was a little long in theatrical cut as it was, so it's even more bloated directors. But anyway, I will shut up for at least 10 seconds and let Beth say something about this movie.
I liked it.
And afterwards, well, so much for 10 seconds. That's because you stopped talking and put a period there. I mean, a dot and after the sentence. Anyway,
I just know better than to talk for more than 5 seconds.
come on, you can talk more about it. So, okay, here's a question. I'll have to prod stuff from you. I can see. I'll have to question you to get you to
Okay,
talk.
question me.
So, when you saw me holding the cover, what did you say? Oh, what's this?
Actually, I saw it laying on the ground, and I said, "This looks interesting. What is it?"
Where was it on the ground? Here?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't see it. Oh, you were on the phone at half price, so you didn't see it until it was here on the ground. I put everything on the ground, everyone. The carpet's on the walls.
Yes.
And everything else that is on the ground. But anyway,
I don't. Just because I see you holding something doesn't mean I pay particular attention to it at the store.
anyway, I was probably like, well, here, this might be fun. We threw it up on the wall. I got a pretty decent home theater surround sound and a projector. This was definitely what I call a wall movie with all the sound and goings on and that kind of stuff. So we played it, and I had forgotten. I hadn't seen it for a while, and I'd forgotten, of course, that obviously Beth will probably not know, but Danny Elfman, did the music. It had that Beetlejuice, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Danny Elfman was in the kind of the throes of his Danny Elfman-ish, sound at the time, and a sound that I kind of got really sick of pretty early on, maybe early '90s. By this time, was over the Danny Elfman.
But this was
music.
like a scary comedy.
Yeah, and I think it was actually rated R, strangely enough. And it's kind of, Beth made a crinkle face. She kind of wondered why. But I guess...
How would this... There's not even any swearing in it,
I think,
or nudity.
Well, the guy gets his head blown off. I mean...
And then it's
a lot
instantly replaced with the ghost head.
So I did see a rating on the back. So either the theatrical or, I would imagine
I guess it was a little gory.
Yeah.
For
So...
the 90s.
So, did you want to talk about what the hell this movie's about?
I'll let you. You're doing
Oh,
so
come
well.
on. My throat hurts.
You've only been talking for 5 minutes.
7:30.
I've been putting some time in there, too.
Please tell people what the basic gist of this movie is.
Basically, from what I understand, this guy has ghost pals that he has haunt people's houses to get money to rebuild his dream house. He was a realtor.
Architect. And the guy is Michael J. Fox?
And the guy is Michael J. Fox. I can't think of his name in the movie. But he is basically... I don't know. Okay, so I guess in the movie 5 years prior to him being in the present day, I don't know exactly how to explain that. He was in a heated argument with his wife, soon to be divorced. I think they were separated or whatnot.
I don't know if they were on their path to divorce. I don't know.
They weren't happy. He was building his dream house and she wanted a garden. He built a basketball court over what was supposed to be her garden. They got into an argument. They drove and fell off of a cliff or something, and she died in the car accident and he lived. But at the same time that this is going on, some lunatic...
that had happened decades prior.
No, about the same time. Well, maybe it was 10 years before.
It was in the 60s or something.
There's a lot of time travel in this movie.
The one thing this movie is just needlessly confusing. Anyway.
In the thralls of the movie, this orderly at the psych ward goes nuts and kills everybody, and the 16-year-old is his accomplice. Apparently they're lovers, but she's in it. She's, a gross misjustice. She gets out of prison after 5 years and is pretty much in prison with her crazy mom who thought she was guilty but didn't want her to go to jail. So she's kind of imprisoned in her house, and this is a big backstory. But long story short, the crazy girl and the fucked up boyfriend, go on a killing spree, and they're trying to like outdo these like Ted Bundy murders, see who can get the most in one slew. And so he killed 12 people in reality, and then his wife was the 13th or the first afterlife killing, because they go on killing afterlife. And
He'd be executed in the electric chair.
yeah, but girlfriend did Ouija board things, brought his spirit back to his ashes, and so they continued their killing sprees. And so architect Michael J. Fox, he's just trying to make a living, scaring people, getting money to exorcise their houses, and these ghosts are just basically his friends. We don't know how he becomes friends with the ghosts.
Well,
They don't really explain that.
can I say that after his car accident, supposedly is when he got the ability to
see them.
To see them. So I guess, yeah, we don't find out. We don't know the history of how he paled up with these ghosts that, like Judge and the one guy and the other guy. These ghosts that help him haunt houses, so then he can go make money.
Make money off
Kind of
of
like
them.
what the Ghostbusters were accused of doing in Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but he's actually using ghosts to haunt people's houses and making money off of that. But then he runs into this woman who's a defrauder, and throws his name all over the press, and it's fun the way they do it.
I'd agree. The execution and the energy of the movie as it unfolds is fun, but in my opinion, the story, it's just like too bloated, I think, for its own good. And I've thought that ever since day one I saw it in the theater.
It could have been cut into 2 movies easily.
Well, that's why I was just like, okay, so there's a longer version, and the theatrical one's already too long, so it basically boils down to there's this mystery all of a sudden of these people with crushed hearts dying all over the town.
And we don't know who's doing it, and we're thinking it's death. Even the
that's-
judge, who is the oldest ghost, is like, this town is cursed, we need to get out, because the death was killing his ghost friends. Like, as soon as the sickle hit them, they were like dead for the final
That's
time.
one thing I want to complain about. So as
That didn't seem right.
as we know, obviously your average person can't see the ghosts and or this death apparition as it goes and squeezes the people's hearts. Michael J. Fox can see
The numbers, but he doesn't see what's going on.
I was just talking about this death apparition that's doing all the killing.
Right.
A cheat that I think is just a big cheat is the fact that
the ghost can see the
this
death ghost,
this guy
and only
who
Michael J. Fox
is revealed.
See it.
This guy, this death, it's just a movie cheat, because basically this whole time it's not found out until later that this death-looking ghost, which we think as a viewer and
Is a wholly new
everyone
character.
is actual death, when it turns out it's just that Jake Busey guy,
The
who
orderly
died
that went nuts.
in the electric chair. It's just him masquerading as death, and that's just contrived to me. It's like, why would you be doing that?
But they made so many different evil characters that you don't know who it is until the end. I liked that part of it. They made some pretty
you're talking
evil
about
characters.
that FBI agent and stuff. Yeah, Beth didn't know who
They
the
had
hell.
a Nazi evil character.
He wasn't a Nazi. He just had that on his hand because he was a part of the. Okay.
He was crazy to the hilt. So they had him as a bad guy. They had the mother of the 16-year-old as a kind of bad
Former
person.
16-year-old, the mother of the daughter. Yeah.
Mother of the daughter of the girlfriend boyfriend duo, the crazy people. And who else did they have? They had like 3 or 4 like people who could be behind the deaths, and Michael J. Fox's character keeps getting like penned for them because he happens to be around when these murders are happening, like the fall guy. And at the end it was kind of interesting because, okay, so one of the characters that die become the girl, I guess now widow, becomes Michael J. Fox's, we'll say, love interest.
Miss Paley Pale.
She was pretty pale. But then Michael J. Fox's character's wife dies early on in the movie, which we find that history out.
5 years prior, and he's been depressed since
ever
and can't
since.
finish his house.
Yeah, that's why he's using the ghost to haunt other people's houses to build the money to get the house together. And Well, long story short, well, actually, I think, okay, she's like a doctor. So she kills him to find out who Death is, brings him back to life just as he's about to, like, kill Death. But then she has to kill him again, and they're. So Death kills him, and he kills the girlfriend as Death is killing him. So his light comes down and pulls him. He grabs the girlfriend's life and pulls her up into the light. And Death's like, ah, shit, I'm going to get the girlfriend. So they're all three pulled up into Michael J. Fox's character's light to go up to heaven. And he's in heaven. He meets his ghosty friends who are back in heaven and happy, whatever, smoking cigarettes and getting all the girls.
Cigars,
and
yeah.
they don't really say what happens to the judge. And
or the dog. Beth wanted to see more of the dog.
It was cute, little hound dog ghost. It was very cute. And then at the very end, psychopath boy and girlfriend think, oh, okay, we're not all the way in heaven. We can go back into our bodies and wreak more havoc.
Well, he wasn't gonna, but she was.
She was going to, because his body has been dead for too long. But then all of a sudden, the light turns all bloody red. In the tunnel, it turns all dark and
red.
Red and just kind of pre-Ghost.
Well, it's post-Ghost.
Post-Ghost, but...
Ghost ripoff?
Yeah, Ghost ripoff. And so there gets sucked into hell. And
yeah.
So we're thinking Michael J. Fox's character's going to stay in heaven, and the wife comes up and he's like, oh, says her name, and she's like, it's not your time. Well, wait, you have to go. It's time to go home. He's like, yeah, I want to go home. And she's like, no, not this home. And she pushes him down, and he goes back into
That's
his
one of the reactions
body.
I remember.
That's pretty
That's
good.
one of the reactions I remember from someone else in the theater. When whoever pushes him out of heaven, and he's like, you see all the fluffy clouds behind him, and he's like, he has his pansy like, whoa. Losing his, some guy in the audience was like, psh. I can still remember that.
So then he goes... And the nurse love interest is astounded because he's dead. He's in heaven, whatever. And
then
that's kind of where they don't really say what happens next.
Except for...
Oh, she can now see ghosts.
We don't know. Yeah, Beth pointed out she doesn't know if she really can or not. She saw the Jeffrey... We didn't even... I'll have to talk about the Jeffrey
Yeah,
Combs.
go for him.
Well, before I do that, I'll say that yeah, at the end, she says she saw the ghost of the Jeffrey Combs character in the back of the cop car.
The Nazi crazy
but
dude.
Then he's not a Nazi, but anyway, he's a crazy FBI guy. And Beth's like, yeah, but did she just say that? And it's just kind of like, yeah, well, the chance that she guessed it was him and she guessed he looked pissed is very iffy. So she probably saw him. So just because of this ordeal they went through, now she can see ghosts. Kind of a sequel set up, I think, a little bit. Like if this one did good, which I don't think it did, they'd be the happy couple, ghost crusaders or whatever. But yeah, I don't imagine this movie did particularly well. It's kind of a bummer because you can tell based on the visual effects and stuff that...
Oh, really good visual effects
for 95, they put a lot of money in it. But one thing I wanted to say before we end...
Are you going to talk about Nazi guy?
He's not a Nazi. He's a crazy FBI agent. But Jeffrey Combs, I was a big... See, around this time, the special Laserdisc of Reanimator came out. Okay. So I was all about Reanimator at this time, and really, everyone that's seen my Reanimator review knows that I think Jeffrey Combs, that's just the role he was born to. He's just so good in Reanimator. And I like Jeffrey Combs as a result. And I was, at the same time, before this movie came out, I'm like, God, it's too bad, he's in these low-budget movies because he's really good. And I'm like, if I ever get, to make movies, I'm going to put him in an A movie. Mm. And then months later, it's like I see Frighteners, and this was before I had internet. So I don't think I knew before I went to see it that he was in it. And I'm like, oh wow, he's in this movie, because I'd never seen a movie with him in a theater. It's mostly home video stuff. So him in the scene with Michael J. Fox, it was just so cool. And what I thought back then, and kind of still think, is Jeffrey Combs. I mean, the character bugs Beth for some
He's
reason.
just twisted.
Maybe reminds her of that. Never mind, I won't go there.
He's just twisted.
But I think Jeffrey Combs pretty much almost steals the movie. And one thing that's cool about the
Kinda
director's
does.
cut is there's like, I think at least one more, maybe two more, like little bits of his character that weren't in theatrical. So I'm like, any more Jeffrey Combs you can give me, fine. So I was fine to receive that. But he's so just neurotic because of his profession of being like an undercover agent for all
And
these
can't
horrible.
stand it when women yell and
Well, he can't
loses
stand
it.
pretty much anything
Anything.
because of the things he experienced undercover his whole career. So he's just ruined human being, and it's just so
But see, at
funny.
first I thought he was Jim Carrey.
Oh, I'm sorry. You
He
thought
just,
that
I,
you thought it was Jim.
I thought he was Jim Carrey at first, and then I looked at him like, that's not Jim Carrey, so it must be
No.
this Combs guy. But
It
Jim
definitely
Carrey
is.
must get inspiration from him because they're pretty similar acting styles. But anyway, that's my take on that character.
Okay, so what if you were gonna rate this between 0 and 4 stars? What would your rating be?
I'd give it a solid 3. Solid 3 stars.
Okay.
It was good for the time. I like the the graphics, the visual effects, I guess. Character development. Could have used a little bit more assistance, but then it'd have to go into a sequel because it would have been too long of a movie. It's like they jammed a lot into this. How long was it? 90 minutes?
And that's my problem with it. The director's cut is 2 hours long.
Oh.
So the
Okay.
theatrical is like an hour and 40 something minutes long. So I 90 minutes would have been a nice running time for this movie.
That's what it felt like to me. But
Oh,
they jammed
wow.
a lot into it.
That's one
That's
of
why
my
it's
problems.
got 3 stars.
That's one of my problems with the movie. So my rating will go 2 3/4 stars out of 4 stars. Ever since I saw it day one at the theater, I thought it was overly confusing, overly complicated, and kind of bloated. And I always felt like Peter Jackson was just like a kid in a candy store, just doing things because he could, not necessarily because it needed to be there for the story's sake.
But after watching it and giving it a few days to think about it, there's a lot of there's a lot of loose ends.
Can you remember any of them, or just leave it at that?
Well, I mean, what happened to the other ghosts, and how did he get the ability to see the ghosts, and did she really get to see the
Well, that was
ghosts?
explained. The car accident.
Well, the car accident, but did she really get to see the ghosts?
Well, we
And
can
then
only assume she did.
what happened to the deadbeat boyfriend? Where did he go? I mean,
Yeah,
he's
did
got
he
his
go to
face ripped
hell?
off by death, but we don't know if he went to
that's,
heaven or
you know
hell.
what? Before we end, that's another thing that's really confusing. So these ghosts are dead. So throughout the course of like early to middle part of this movie, this death character is going around killing living people, but also seemingly killing the ghosts. And it's just like, how do you kill a ghost? You know?
Because throughout the movie, the ghosts are getting hit by... and it's cartoonish.
Well, right. If they get hit by things in the real world, it's like it's not. It doesn't actually affect them. But like this Death character, who turns out not to be Death,
Turns
it's
out
just
the
the Jake
psycho.
Busey character. How can he kill a ghost, and how can anyone kill a ghost for that matter? There's a lot of details
I
that.
think he stole Death's sickle.
Is that the thing? We think he
That's
stole.
the only
Well, how the
answer I
hell
can
do you
have.
steal that from Death? Anyway,
Supernatural.
a lot of things. Very bloated, a lot of things unexplained. Like if you're gonna have so many like details in that, I don't know, maybe try to explain more of them. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think they were trying to put Ghost and Ghostbusters and...
Oh, together, kinda.
Kinda, yeah. It's like if
Kinda.
they had a baby, that'd be this movie.
Okay.
But I still liked it. I still give it a solid 3 stars, and maybe I'll watch it again, and maybe I'll catch things I didn't quite catch the first time. But if you guys want a funny horror, I'd say watch Frighteners.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten. Back when we saw it in the theater, and even when I had it on home video, I wasn't very familiar with Dee Wallace Stone. That's the older version of the crazy, the crazy woman who becomes. You think she's the innocent, but she's the murderer.
Oh, the
She-
grown-up version
The
of
grown
the
up.
16-year-old?
Yeah,
Okay.
she played her. She was in things in the 80s, like Elliot's Mom and E.T. and a lot of Joe Dante horror movies and Critters and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't recognize her at all. I didn't know who the hell she was back in the 90s. So watching this again now, having revisited and gotten to know a lot of the early stuff she did, I'm like, oh wow, that's Dee Wallace. So it's interesting how over decades your movie knowingdom increases, and then you can go back and watch a movie you hadn't seen for a while and go, oh, that's them.
But he does that to every movie we watch, even shows we watch. Oh, that's in that movie, and he's in this movie. So it doesn't. We can't watch anything without him pulling a movie character out of another movie.
And it bothers Beth, so lucky me.
It's just who you are.
It's
It's your geekiness that I'm so attracted to.
It's just who I am. So I don't know. We don't need to cover everything about this movie. That's our
Leave it to them to watch it if they want to.
general thoughts.
Thanks for listening to us for almost a half an hour.
Better part of a half hour talk about Frighteners. That's what I thought it was.
The Frighteners.
Frighteners. Okay.
They could have had more scenes with the dog. I think that would have been cool.
And Beth wonders what happened to Judge.
Yeah.
What happened to the ghosts that got killed by the character posing as Death?
Well,
We
those
never-
two were up in heaven waiting for.
But they
the
weren't
Michael
killed.
J.
Were they killed by?
Yeah, they were.
They were killed by the
Yeah,
bad guy. Oh,
yeah.
so they
They went to
they
heaven.
got killed again, and that's just one of just the things that I shake my head about this movie.
There's a lot of loose ends. But
Okay.
before we go over a half an hour, thank you so much for tolerating us for this time, and hope you listen to more Nate and Beth reviews.
All right, thanks everyone.